A comedy fundraiser will take place February 15th to support the Multiple Sclerosis Society. The event and the after party will take place 7:30 p.m. at Mosley's on the Charles. Joining us are two of the organizers, John Fernandes from 1025 Productions and his wife, Dahria Fernandes. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with Dahria because you live with multiple sclerosis.
Correct.
And what has that been like for you?
It has been quite the journey. Initially, there was a lot of depression. I had not come to the stage where I am now today, where I could actually speak about the disease to the extent of having hope. There was a lot more of what I call walking in the wilderness for me. And over time, it just seems like I found a little bit of a silver lining in this, where I see it as somewhat of a blessing, because it's opened a perspective of life that a lot of my peers don't necessarily see. Not that it's an easy road, but at the same time, I'm dealt cards and I just deal.
Well, the short description, this is a disease of the central nervous system where the immune system attacks it, and it can get pretty bad, right?
Yeah, you actually, what happens over time is the immune system goes and attacks the brain and additionally the spinal cord itself. And in doing that, it's kind of creating lesions in different areas of the brain. So when it's affecting the brain, it could be looked at a lot like a brain injury of some sort, but it tends to happen over time in small progression. There's two different types of MS too, where there's relapsing and remitting, and then a progressive MS. And right now I deal with relapsing and remitting, but I have gone through every medication that is out there. Right now I'm currently on a what they call a monoclonal, or it's like a chemotherapy drug that keeps me walking, keeps me standing, keeps me moving.
John, you're a member of the family, so you're also living with multiple sclerosis. What's that been like for you?
It's tough. There's, as she had said, that there's those moments where you can see the thoughts and the depression kicking in, and then trying to be the person of support, trying to figure out the ways to help her out of that, or through that. That's where the difficulties come in, because sometimes you never know what the triggers are, and I'm good for hitting triggers. So, I can, in my attempts to help, I could actually be a hindrance at sometimes. But she's very vocal, so she lets me know, and I just have to follow along whatever the boss says. But it's tough, but it is a journey. And I think we've been handling it pretty well so far.
Dahria, you're raising money, and I guess there could be for a lot of things here, whether it's research or even support groups of people. What kind of things is this going to help?
In reference to, I was diagnosed in 2007, and to date, the amount of information that has been in research come to the fruition is allowed, number one, blood tests to be done. We're not getting as many spinal taps and things like that. Additionally, MRIs, the type of MRIs are getting just so much better, to be able to actually diagnose, additionally see lesions as they're coming through. I think even some of the research on nutrition that's starting to happen is very important. So I think for me, if not in my time, I have to think about the people that will be here beyond me. And additionally, it's been found that it is a hereditary disease. My aunt actually dealt with MS and recently has passed away as of last year. Additionally, I don't ever want to think about my children, but I have to be clear and concise in reference to the fact that there's a possibility. And if they come into this world in a time period where, and have to deal with MS, and they have the proper tools to be able to fight it, that's what I want. I want to be able to help in that. And thus far over my journey, I hadn't had enough room in my tank to be able to give beyond myself, because I was still trying to find exactly where I was at with the whole thing. I had to realize that the day of diagnosis was just the day of diagnosis. I actually was diagnosed in 2007, but was told that I had MS 15 years prior. So I was dealing when I came into it. It's just I didn't know it. And sometimes you know it, and then it kind of takes its course on you. And you just have to find whether it's going to be the negative road or the positive road. And so I think that it's just giving more people hope for that positive road.
John, what about having an event like this? Because I mean, this is not strictly for people who are living with multiple sclerosis themselves. What do you have in mind for this?
So the whole point of the event, we've been, like she said, she was diagnosed in 2007. So we've been fighting this privately for the last 11 years. And at the tail end of last year, we decided to take our private fight public. And part of the reason for doing that is we own a funeral home. And one of the things you see oftentimes is multiple sclerosis on death certificates. And so then we've encountered families that have people in their family that are also dealing with multiple sclerosis. And they feel that there's nowhere for them to go. There's not enough support systems out there for them. And so we decided that we would take our private fight public so people would see that, okay, there is a way to live through this. You can live comfortably, you can live well, but you have to do the right things, and you need to have a good support system. And so that's what we're trying to show by doing this event. And that's why we picked multiple sclerosis, because it's something that we deal with every single day. And we want people to be able to look at us as an example of how to live through this. And if we can raise money while doing that to become a larger support for those people that are out there, then we're hitting every target that we planned on it.
Dahria, you and John are paying it forward now, but go back a bit to the earlier stage when you were seeking out people. What was that like for you?
Oh, God. Well, I remember the first time that I got diagnosed, and then it was like, okay, go out and check out these different support groups. We have one that happens at this hotel every month, every 30 days. You can go over there and just interact with other people dealing with MS. When I walked in, I look up at the screen, and it's a MS brain that is atrophied, and so, of course, that was not the uplifting spirit that I needed to come into. And I think that there's an event like this. I know that through my journey, because of the depression that's come on, the disease causes depression additionally. And so, of course, when the disease causes depression, you're dealing with the whole fact of you've been diagnosed. There's a lot of things that, in reference to life, you're not seeing the brightness of it. And so it's funny because when John was thinking about this, the name Laugh With Your Love, it was kind of like, what the funny thing is, the times where I'm able to laugh the most is when we're watching comedy. We're just sitting watching a stand-up show or something like that on TV, not necessarily even going out, just us watching on a Netflix or something like that. And so I was like, that's actually pretty poignant in my life in reference to the name and the significance, and then tying it to MS and how that silver lining, you can see through some of that I know it's doing the work, but there's a large spectrum of MS patients too, when we're talking about individuals that are walking, able to move and deal with the beginning stages, but then there's so many on the other spectrum. So sometimes it's hard to be upset with where I am as opposed to looking at others dealing in MS and where the progression has taken them. And so I just think that the laughing is very important for us to be able to have those times with our family members and support systems that are uplifting.
This has been a news. We're talking with Dahria and John Fernandes about multiple sclerosis and some comic relief. John, what about the comic relief?
Oh, I love comedy. When we were starting the interview, I asked you, did you want me to be serious? Did you want me to be joking? And all of that in fun, because I know that it's hard to cry when you laugh. And so the depression that she was talking about, the disease itself causes the depression, but then the medications also cause depression. Yeah. And so if there's anything that can help a person laugh, then it's going to stop you from crying. Yes, it's not going to stop you permanently, but it will stop you momentarily. And in those moments where you can have some comic relief, those are those moments where you can breathe and hopefully see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's the whole point of this. And if I can say, the Multiple Sclerosis Society, they've been very helpful. I was just on the phone with them, and they're participating and loving this idea. And the event that Dahria, my wife, was talking about, that we went to, that first support group, when we walked in, it wasn't just depressing for her, it was also depressing for me. Because when I remember the first doctor's appointment, the doctor came out into the waiting room calling her name and walked by us. And when we finally said, we're right here, he said, oh, looking at your MRI, I expected you to be in a wheelchair, because the MRI was his first meeting of her and her with the disease. And so when we went to that first support group meeting, there were multitudes of people in wheelchairs, multitudes with walkers and canes. Their gait was off. They needed assistance. And it just wasn't a positive outlook for her on her initial diagnosis, and this being the first, our first vision of what it could really look like. She did say that her aunt dealt with MS, who recently passed, but she dealt with it pretty well. She wasn't in a wheelchair, she wasn't in a walker, she worked until she retired, and as she aged...
Yeah, well, she was on the trial, at the trial of the first medications, and so once she got on, she stuck with the same medication kind of all the way through, whereas mine has not been, it hasn't been really taken well to a lot of the different medications. So at the same time, I think everybody's MS is different, and that's one thing to take into consideration as you're dealing with different people. But I think that the different comedians that you have chosen, which he's been, running the videos by me to look at the different comedians and how funny they are and things like that. I think that they are definitely going to bring quite an uplifting spirit for all of us.
So you have laughs, you have an after party, starts at 7:30 February 15th at Mosley's on the Charles.
Yes.
And John, if people want some more information or want to get tickets, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Well, the tickets are being sold on Eventbrite, and all you have to do is go on eventbrite.com and look up Laugh With Your Love, and that's LAFF, Laugh With Your Love, on eventbrite.com. There's also a dinner. So it's a dinner, and during dinner we have a live band with a vocalist that will be performing during dinner. Then after dinner, you have the full comedy show with the 4 comedians. And then afterwards, if you want to stay, you can stay and dance the rest of the night away to 2 of the best DJs in the city. And so we try to give you the full, well-rounded, Valentine-inspired, not Valentine-themed, but Valentine-inspired event. Because for Valentine's Day, you want to be with your significant other, you go out to eat, maybe watch a movie, or you just want to hang out with your friends. So it's not a couples-only event. It's open to everyone, and there's dinner, music, comedy, and dancing all under one roof, and for a good cause.
Well, thank you both for capturing the spirit, John and Dahria Fernandes.
Appreciate it.
Still to come, Vida Hispana with Maga Troncoso.